This is SaaS Therapy.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of SaaS Therapy, the show where we help you save your most important business relationships, your customers. I'm your host, Todd Kirk. I'm joined by my co-host, Casey Trujillo, who I hope got a little bit of sun this last week. I know he was on the Oregon coast. Maybe he's just sad and depressed because it rained the whole time. I don't know. What's the Pac West like, Casey?
Man, actually had great weather. It was wonderful. I now have a better understanding of Goonies. It was the 40th anniversary, so that was
Did you go up to
amazing.
Astoria and try to hunt for the lost treasure of...
People were crazy up there. That was awesome. That was a good one. I can see why Twilight was filmed up there with that little mist or whatever they have in the morning. I could see how vampires could hide out. Was he a vampire? I think he's a vampire.
It's okay.
Yeah, Oregon coast was amazing.
Good deal, Casey. You know, we're about midway through the year, and we tend to break our seasons apart internally here as we do this podcast. We break our seasons up into kind of a 6-month chunk or so. And so now that we are about to finish up the last 6 months, I thought it'd be helpful to go back and think through all the different guests we've had this year. You know, starting all the way back at the beginning of the year in January. We tried to branch out and to diversify our audience. And it was, as I was looking back through all the guests we've had, and if you're new to the show, we do a weekly episode where usually it's sometimes it's me and Casey having conversations like this. Other times it's us bringing in really smart guests. But we've had people who are we had on the father of data literacy, Jordan Morrow, or who just talks and is just a data geek and just loves to talk about how to structure and analyze and think through your information.
Is there anybody else, Todd, that's gone out and created a children's book to try to help people understand AI? I mean, that's how far this guy is passionate.
Yes.
Is he's not just trying to teach people like me and you how to understand this. He's like, I'll write children's book and see if I can help kids in third grade understand how to do this.
Yeah. And, we have a lot of people from CS who are common thought leaders, Ed Powers, Kristen Hare. Those are amazing people. But it was interesting to look and see. We had people on from venture capital. We had people on who are product managers who lead up product development teams. We had people on who led up partnerships. So we had some great people who lead up partner sales at Vox. We also had people who work for a partner, CDW. And we had people who talked about UX and thinking through good UX experience, people who talked about scale and marketing. We had a ton of different guests on. And at least from my perspective, back when we first started this podcast, I made a post on LinkedIn. And my point with that post was, I think it's really important to learn about all of the different voices inside of a SaaS company, because, SaaS is, in order to be really successful in a tech startup, if you're trying to work in a business that's selling B2B software, you need the support of all the different teams working cohesively together. And so I think regardless what your role is, it's really important to learn from these other teams and see how they can apply to you and how they can help you. So Casey and I figured today we would just highlight a couple of the conversations that were meaningful to us. I've loved all of our guests. And by the way, if you're new to the show, we would love to hear more from you. Like, what types of guests would you like to hear from? Tell us in the comments, let us know. But today, Casey and I figured we'd just take a minute and walk through some of the conversations that we had this season and kind of give you our impressions and thoughts on it. So, Casey, you want to take it away?
Well, Todd, yeah, I got to start with the person that speaks to my soul, which was Kelly Hall, the CCO at QuickBase, because she's a fellow addict of McDonald's and Diet Coke. And so, I got to start there, Todd. That just makes sense. Kelly's story, besides the podcast and just the great way that she defines the line of, are you really people-centric? Are not just customer-centric, are you people-centric? Was phenomenal. But to hear her story and to hear the imposter syndrome that she talks about with not going to getting her college degree, feeling that as she progressed in her career, being a female, she had to work 12 times as harder or 10 times as harder is what she said. And then not having a degree, the way that people treated her, and to where she is now. And the thing that she hangs her hat on is being people-centric. I mean, it just makes sense, right? we forget people. We start treating objects like people and people like objects. But if you can reverse that, that's when you unlock some pretty meaningful things. So I would definitely tune in to Kelly's story. She's written a lot about that in different magazines and articles that have come out about her. She's always been in the top 50 influential women. Her story is unbelievable. So Todd, for me to get out right at the get-go, season 4, one of my highlights was the mindset to compete, the mindset to be people-centric, the mindset to say, I can accomplish big things. I just have to get after it. I have to acquire knowledge, have to acquire wisdom. I have to keep people at the center of everything. Hers was it was inspiring. I don't know, Todd, what was your reaction from the things that she presented?
Well, I mean, Kelly is a very impressive person, but I think one of the things that I loved was just her investment in people. I was struck right of the start in that conversation, and all the people who I've ever met who know Kelly just talk about her in such high regard and give her such a great amount of respect. For me, I think a lot of times we all want to be influential. We want to have really
Mm,
awesome and impactful teams. We want everybody to work really well together. And Kelly demonstrated, at least to me, some of the things that are really important characteristics in leadership and how you earn and develop respect and influence inside of an organization. And it's not just about trying to aspire to a tower by being the best.
yeah,
You're not just trying to
yeah.
climb up the hierarchy. I think the part of the reason why Kelly was able to be successful there is because not only does she have the title today, she has the title, right? But she doesn't wield her authority, I would say, probably based off of her authority. She wields her power through her genuine care for the people that work with her and through her expertise and willingness to get her hands dirty. And so I think, respect is something that you earn. And I feel like Kelly was a really good example of that. So that really stuck out to me. But there was a question that she said she asks new hires too. And I don't remember exactly what it was. Do
Oh
you remember
man.
exactly what that was? Because I remember it was something about kind of like what stirs your soul, something along those lines.
Yeah.
But I don't remember
Yeah, yeah,
exactly what it
yeah.
was. But I really liked it because it showed that when she hires somebody, she's not just trying to find people who can do a job. She's trying to find somebody who have an internal motivation and an internal drive and figuring out how to harness that. And I really like that idea too. But do you remember exactly what the question was she asked?
No, I think you were right. What is the passion that stirs your soul? Was it something to that regard?
Mm-hmm.
I think it was something like that. I love the phrase. Go back, listen to it. I think the other thing that I walked away from, and one of my favorite podcasts that I listen to is the Ed Milet show. He's in personal development, and he talks about growing up with a dad that was alcoholic and the rough life that was. And at some point in his life, his dad becomes sober, and he talks about just in the middle of the night he wakes up and says, the person that helped my dad was an alcoholic. And he talked about how sometimes in life we look at the things that are challenges that we think disqualify us from being great, and it is actually the thing that could qualify you to be amazing.
Mm.
And it hit him that is what we should be looking at. So again, I walked away with the way that she approached life was she wanted to know everything about you, because those are the makeup of your character. And like you said at the beginning, we all try to be a little bit influential and we maybe get outside of who we are. She's just kind of the opposite. She says, stay with who you are. And that's what actually makes you great. So Todd, yeah, I mean, that stirred the passion of my soul is, hey, I want to really understand people and get to know them better. So I know their story, so I can understand how I could best utilize the talents and gifts that they have inside of them, instead of trying to maybe force them to be something that they're not. So
Mm.
I don't know, Todd. That was an amazing one. I thought that was a great one to end on. I think that was one of our last
Yeah,
episodes in
super,
this season 4.
very, very human episode for sure. And it's interesting because one of the other episodes that we did this season, I guess, was a conversation with Debbie Smith, who
Mm.
she's the head of Sedma and really just someone really well known in the customer education space. And it's interesting because I think you could say customer education in large regard is similar to that idea of this, like how do we understand who people are and help them maximize their potential. I mean that's maybe a little bit of a romantic notion, especially in the SaaS world. But I think the idea of customer education in itself is one of those things that a lot of organizations kind of see as important sometimes and not in other times. But for me, one of the things that was interesting was like I've always had this really big that conversation was about like should you have your customers go through credentialing, go get certified and get
Yep.
credentials that show that they know your software. And Kelly really wanted to know people, and she was able to do that on a human level, on a one-to-one interaction. But how do you do that in a scale motion when
Mm.
you're trying, especially when it's not just your employees, but you're trying to do that with your customers? And for me, I've always had a little bit of just like I don't know. My gut tells me certifications are kind of lame, like that, mostly because I've met enough people who have gone through and gotten a certification who then think that they like know everything, but then they're kind of gomers who don't really know what they're doing. So I've always had a little bit of a hard time with that idea. But Debbie changed my perspective a little bit. One, because it's not that credentials and certification are something that we shouldn't do, right? In my mind, I'm like, do you even need to do it?
Yeah.
But for her, it was this narrowing of how do you invest more and more in the people who are invested in you, and that
Mm.
changed my perspective a lot because. And it also is a little bit validating because in my mind, I think what most organizations jump too quickly to that. They jump without doing enablement first. And so you need to focus on enablement because no one wants to go get certified in something that they aren't already invested in. So first you get them invested, but then what do you do when they're invested and how do you keep them invested? And her perspective on certification and building out really good programs, it changed my perspective because it opened up this idea of those who get certified in a program are more likely to renew. Those who get certified are more likely to bring your software into another organization if they leave jobs. Those who get certified are more likely to stand up and answer questions and engage inside of communities. And so it's one of those things where one, it helps you learn more about that person and then identify those people, but it also can be a kickstart, a catalyst to help someone become a better champion for you in the future. But you can't do that too early. And so understanding how to design those properly and think about what you actually want that to look like, that's all really important. Because a lot of times people also design certification programs to be the thing I hate, which is testing on stuff that nobody uses, that isn't practical and doesn't actually help someone prove that they're really going to be a valuable resource inside of the organization. So she also it's like, okay, I can see all the reasons why I've always had this like negative impression and bad perception on these types of programs, but she opened up my eyes to maybe how to think about that. And so, especially if you work for a SaaS company who has a complex tool that a lot of people need to use inside of an organization, or really need to prove that to be effective at their job, like maybe that's something you should consider. And Debbie has some really good advice on it. So that was meaningful for me, mostly because it changed my perspective. And I feel like it's related to that same idea of like, how do you understand people, but maybe use different programs in a way to then help those people develop and become better.
Oh yeah, that was mind blowing. I learned so much. I didn't understand even the legal ramifications of creating a certification program that she walks through right at the beginning. Like she just throws down some serious heat right at the beginning, saying, "Hey, you want to create a certification program? You better know the legalities of what you're getting yourself into because maybe you're not ready for that." It also triggered unhappy memories when I was going to college because I am super old. I'm almost hitting 50. But in college, I got certified in Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. And that was such a waste of time because all I did was try to cram to remember certain things inside of Word, Excel, and PowerPoint so I could get my little certification and I could post it on my resume that I was certified. In all actuality, I couldn't remember how to do anything inside of Excel, PowerPoint, or Word. But I got my certification. I crammed really hard for that just a little bit. Like it actually made me hate those tools more because I went and got certified in them. But when Debbie walked through it, I'm like, okay, I get what you're trying to do. If someone just would have first taught me how to be more productive in Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, then I might have been excited about getting the certification. So I think she really helped us walk through the psychology of that. It's not a this or that, it's a this and that, and understand the order in which you should do that in.
Mm-hmm.
But it
Yeah.
was brilliant. I thought that was one of the best things I've ever listened to.
Yeah. So by the way, like I said, just a reminder, if you're new here, go back and check out some of these episodes. Really, really good conversations this year. So
Yeah, if you're thinking
anything
about
else stick out to you
certification
from
program,
this season,
must.
Casey? Mm-hmm.
Oh man, gosh, Noah Little. He was talking about CSMs, and we need to change from relationship managers to revenue managers. Just that mindset is fantastic. We at our work, we have this thing called a phantom bee. So you always hear the story of, hey, I want to go from point A to point B as fast as possible. Everybody wants to do that, but unfortunately, sometimes when we're trying to make that short route from A to B, we different topics come up, different emergencies come up, and they start to become a phantom bee, which we think is the main thing we're trying to get to, but it's really not. In the book Finished, I can't remember the author, he talks about noble distractions is the term he uses when we're trying to get to an end goal and we get distracted by something that's very worthwhile, but it's not the main goal. And I think Noah did a fantastic job at saying, hey, if you're in customer success, let's be honest, at the end of the day, it is all about revenue. Now, relationship can be a driver, but where maybe things got lost over the past several years is CS started to feel that was the goal, is how great is my relationship with this customer. That's not the end goal, because I've had plenty of people that are some really good friends that didn't buy from me. And that sucked. And all the relationship I had in the world didn't help me win that deal. So we're not saying, again, it's a this or that, but what is my main focus is revenue. How do I get to revenue? And then you start walking your way back through that. Yeah, relationship's a part of it, but being a challenger is part of it. Being able to show ROI is a part of it. Like, there's so many pieces to being a revenue manager that if you're a relationship manager, you actually shy away from, because you don't want to talk numbers. That will ruin my relationship. No, that's not actually true. That's not true at all. Todd, what was impactful when you heard that mindset shift of relationship to revenue manager?
Well, I think it really is a great lesson for everyone to learn, and more importantly, to learn on this idea of what is the most important thing that you can do. Relationships are really powerful, but I think what's important too. One of the things that stuck out to me, at least, Noah's a great voice in the sense that he does a lot of consulting to support people who are trying to make career advancements, get a promotion in a new job, or find a new job as a CSM in a new role after they left a company. And that focal point's really important, because I think the danger is if you focus too much on the relationship, then you're kind of making it a little bit about the thing that you want as an individual. But
Mm.
and as a CSM, your goal is to help the company succeed. And so relationships are really critical. They help the company succeed if it leads to revenue. So you can't lose sight of that. And so becoming a more disciplined manager of revenue is really important, because it's just a very subtle mindset shift that I think can make a really big difference in your ability to drive an impact within an organization that you work for. So I think there's a lot of really good advice there that Noah has, and it's, again, worth going back and listening to. Um,
And the great part about Noah, again, is a story that he starts out with, and how he's gotten to this place of what was it like helping, like, God, I can't remember that it was in the thousands of people find jobs
yeah.
in CS. But it started with his story of how he got into CS and how he actually became really good at it. I have a buddy at the gym. I asked him what he does for a living. He says he actually helps high school athletes get scholarships. And I said, oh, that's fantastic. How did you get started? He says, the funniest thing is, I was in real estate. My son, who I thought was a great athlete. We all think our your children are wonderful athletes, right? Whether it be a son or a daughter. And he had 0 offers. So he went out and started to work the system, create game film highlights, different things like that. And all of a sudden, by the end of his son's senior year, he had somewhere in the neighborhood of 28 scholarship offers. And someone else heard about it and said, hey, could you help my child with that? And then all of a sudden, he has, I think he said, over 750 athletes now that he works with, and that's his full-time job. But again, going back to that concept we start with Kelly, it's like the challenges or the maybe the obstacles that you face in life, if you hit them head on and find a way to make that into a growth model for yourself, all of a sudden it becomes such a great strength. And so I think Noah is another great example of that, where he's like, hey, I dealt with some challenges. I made this work for me, and now I make it work for others, and now it's actually my full-time gig. So love things like that, Todd. Again, it's that mindset. We talk about it a lot, of whatever's coming towards me, whether it be AI or whatever that might be. I am going to find a way to make this work. And then once you become a master of it, then it's just scaling it out and teaching other people how to do it. So Noah's episode, phenomenal. Again, like you said, Todd, we had a bunch of other great CS leaders that had some other great feedback, skill set in helping us become better at that. I really loved Roger Mendez's one on AI. He went and took a course over at Cornell. Is that where he took this
Yep.
course from? And what is AI and what isn't it? And that was another phenomenal one. So again, being a CS leader, if you're listening to this podcast, go listen to those other people that are in CS. Whew, those are some master classes that were given out this year.
Yeah, and I love your point about being willing to try to understand the true problems and get where you need to go. One of the conversations that we had this year, I guess it was just me and Dave Darrington.
Yes.
You didn't participate in that because Dave doesn't like you, but we get that, no, Dave is the best. I love Dave. But one of the things that was really interesting there is we had this conversation around one of the things that is a pretty big problem for any B2B SaaS company is the fact that you have to you have these two audiences oftentimes you're trying to serve, and they have very different needs. So, well, they don't necessarily have very different needs. You just as an organization can't solve those needs the same way.
Right.
So we called it the two hump problem. And it's basically this idea that you have SMB customers. So you might have thousands of really small customers that you need to have some sort of digital scale interaction with because you can't support them. But then you have these large enterprise customers, and they may make up a significant portion of your revenue, but only be a small number of customers. And because they're paying you so much, they have this very high expectation of the level of service that you're going to give to them. So they expect, lots of dedicated people that they can contact anytime they have problems. They're going to want a lot of personalized training and resources that are being delivered to them to make them be successful. So you spend a ton of time with these really big customers because they make up a significant portion of your revenue, and there's just a few of them. So losing just one of them can be very painful.
Big deal.
But then you have all these little tiny customers that you're trying to work through in SMB. And that was a really interesting conversation to have, primarily because Dave is not a CS person. Dave is a person in customer education. And so to have that conversation and have him be thinking through and trying to process, how do we develop solutions that are going to actually support these two very different audiences? That was a really fun conversation just to kind of explore and think through what are the ways that we better retain and keep our smaller customers that we can't dedicate a full-time resource to, versus, how do we create less of a burden on our organization in supporting these larger customers? And I think there are solutions that can really be helpful to make that be possible. And it doesn't look the same. And so how do you then tailor the solution that you're going to provide to your small customers versus your large customers? Whereas you're trying to spend less time with these really big customers because they can be such a drain, but you want to make sure that they feel like you're giving them this really great white glove experience. But you also want to spend more time with these smaller customers, but that's not possible, because if you do, then it's going to, you're going to lose sight of the actual destination you want to go on to. So that whole idea of how do you tackle the two-step problem, I think it's worth going back to. And that one was fun too, because Dave also leads his own podcast called the C Lab. And so we had kind of that done in a 2-part conversation. So you can go listen to his episode on C Lab and then come back and listen to the conversation continue on our podcast channel.
What I appreciate about Dave is Dave is one that came up with that term, and I don't know if it was his term and somebody else came up with was vain metrics, right? Mm-hmm. We put in front of us metrics that make us look good, not necessarily things that drive the business. Then we correlate things in the business and say, oh, that's the reason why, right? If I was to say, how do you increase your renewal rate? I could, if I put that in Chat GPT, I'd have 10 things come out. It would be, have your NPS score be improved. And I remember Dave Blake talking about how you can get your NPS score. I know ServiceNow, they bank on that. NPS score goes up, our renewal percentage is going to go up. Debbie Smith talked about if you got certifications, right? Other people will talk about if you can reach more end users. If you get people that get onboarded within, 30 days and see that first time to value. like there's so many things that we correlate to getting higher renewal, upsells, etc., that I think sometimes we latch on to the one that is easiest for us to get that number. And we like, look, yeah, look what we did. We did all this training, and our trainer score was, over 97%. We're exactly where we wanted to be. And those accounts that renewed, if they went and did one of our trainings, it was 100% every time. And you're like, okay, but 10 of your customers went through it and you have 2,000. So that's probably not the reason why everyone's renewing, because that's just such a small sample size. But I love about Dave is he really challenges himself and looks at his numbers and his data and says, yeah, I'm getting credit for that, but is that really right? Is that impacting the most amount of people? Like, can I really say that's the reason why? And so I love people like that. I love people that are consistently challenging themselves to say, is that the reason or a big reason why customer X did ABC? So I love Dave for that. And Todd, those two podcasts were phenomenal. I went back, listened to both of those, and they were excellent. I actually bowed myself out. I'm just like, I'm not smart enough to have a conversation with these two. So I'm the good looks of the podcast. So Todd, excellent job in that one. That was a really phenomenal one.
Casey, just because we are, we're reviewing what we've done over the last 6 months, I decided to go back and look at our analytics of episodes to just see which ones had the most listens to. And what's interesting is what some of the ones that got listened to the most in this last year are not necessarily the ones that you and I have highlighted. So I'm glad that we spent some time to highlight some of the episodes that I think were fantastic. Are you curious if you were to guess? I'm gonna put this on you. Your ability to guess here is going to be totally wrong, I bet, because we also have
for sure
done probably 20 plus episodes in the last 6 months. But if you were to guess what was our most popular episode in the first half of this year, what would you guess are our two most popular episodes?
I'm gonna go with maybe Ed Powers and either Samantha Murray or Kristen Hayer. Is that how I say her last name? I don't know if I did that right.
Wow. Okay. I'm impressed, Casey. All of the ones you've mentioned are in the top 5.
All right.
So
not bad.
You did pretty good. But you did not get the most watched one. Ed Powers is in the top 3, which is good. I think Samantha Murray is in the top 3, but our number 1 episode this last half year was actually Amanda Nielsen over at Box. And so that episode was interesting.
That was phenomenal too.
And so just as a heads up there, if you're curious, our most popular episode this year so far has been the one with Amanda, which Amanda's episode was about developing your own personal brand on, even though she's in partner sales, the episode was really about how do you develop your own personal brand on LinkedIn. So that's interesting. That's our most listened to one in the last 6 months. So
Todd, I think we just found a theme, because remember how Amanda exploded really in her brand was someone challenged her on a post, and they actually had a conversation about it where people actually attacked her. The way that she represented herself actually exploded her into that scene. And again, going back to be you, that's what makes you great. So I think we found our theme for season 4 was look at the challenges, look at the things that have gone in your life. Those are the things that are going to make you great or are making you great. So Todd, good job. Nice. I like that you went back and did that.
Yeah, I figured it'd be fun for people to know. I'm always curious myself of like, what are the things that resonate with this audience? And again, like I said, if you're new here, we hope you come back and join us. We're here every single week. Leave us a review so that we get a better idea. Tell Casey you wish he was funnier or better looking because he thinks he's the better looking one. I don't know. Whatever you think that needs to be, but help us figure that out. Casey, I know you mentioned one last one that I think was a really interesting conversation to have, mostly because it was so outside of what we normally talk about. And that was the conversation that we had about working with partners in the SaaS space with Max over at CDW. I just before we close, I'd love just to, because again, we wanted to call out a lot of the different people that we had this year on the show so far. But any thoughts there? This is because I thought that one was so unique and different from a lot of our other conversations.
You're crazy if you didn't go back and listen to that one if you're thinking about going through the channel, because Max has been there for, I think it was 20 years, maybe 15 or 20 years at CDW. And then before that, he was at another big SI. And he just lays out, hey, here are the top 5 things you need to consider and know about if you're going to try to do something through us. And here are the benefits you're going to get. So if you're really thinking about it, don't go make the mistake and try to figure it out on your own. Go listen to this gentleman who manages large teams over at CDW, and he is going to give you the blueprint and how to go work with an SI like themselves. So, I mean, that one, again, you should charge money for stuff like that because it was that good and giving you a masterclass on what it takes to get inside of a large vendor like Box or like CDW.
And all we're asking is for a review and a comment, maybe every once in a while.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
it.
come on.
Yeah, like and subscribe, baby.
Casey, it's been so good. This has been a fun half year, I guess, so far. H1 was a blast. When you look forward to the second half of the year, any thoughts as kind of, this year? It's interesting. We identified some themes maybe of conversations that have come through. We don't necessarily plan our episodes that way. We like them to just feel organic and raw and just real conversations with real people. But I'm curious, when you think about the second half of the year, anything you're looking forward to or you're excited about?
You know what? I really want to get into people's skill set, what makes them great. I think we've talked a lot about, how to make your product great, how to make your customer success teams efficient. We've gone through a lot of those things. I want to start getting into and learn people's habits. I want to know what makes them great. What are the habits they've instilled in their life? What are the books that they read that make them or change the way that they thought about their approach to business and in just life in general? I want to dive into that in season 5. I want to learn more about people. I think Kelly Hall really hit home to me. And I want to be more people-centric and understand what makes people great and bring that out, draw that out so all of us can learn a little bit more and just have some awareness and some aha moments of like, I'm going to put that into my practice. That sounds amazing. So that's what I'm looking for. Todd, you?
No, I like that a lot. You and I joked when we first started this show. Initially, we thought we would be the therapists, but then over time, it's turned out that we're the patients.
Yeah,
No,
seriously.
SaaS Therapy, and who's the patient and who's the therapist. I think one of the things that I have loved about doing this show with you, Casey, is the fact that it's been therapeutic for me, and it's helped me to find mentors and champions and thought leaders who can help me develop and want to become a better tool, better resource, better friend, better colleague, better employee, better advisor, all those different things. And so the thing that I find most valuable is whenever I get to just ask somebody else how to help me work through my own questions and my own thoughts, my own problems. And so maybe I look forward to that too. I think we need to make sure that we continue to learn how to better extract the gold, the nuggets from the knowledge and the wisdom from the people that we have on, because we've had such phenomenal guests over the years, and it's been awesome to go on that journey. So yeah, I want to do the same. Hopefully, as we go into season 5 here, as we focus on the second half of 2025, we can continue not just to bring on awesome guests who share and drop amazing knowledge, but also figure out what makes them tick, what helped them get there, what helped them to do that and to become those thought leaders. So looking forward to that as we move on to this next season.
Yeah. Todd, we should make that the homework assignment for this podcast is let's ask questions in humility. I mean, could you imagine a world, especially this world we live in, if we just actually turned to people and asked in humility, hey, why are you approaching it that way? And what makes you believe that would be the right way to do it? Not in a way that I want to respond back and say, you're wrong, I'm right. But I just really want to learn. And I just couldn't imagine the difference that we would make, not only in our jobs and in our business, but just in our personal life. We actually humbly sought advice and mentoring from people because everyone's amazing, right? They all have a story to tell. So I like that. Let's make that our homework assignment, Todd, for the end of the next 6 months. Let's get people thinking that way.
I love it. That's great advice, and I need to do that better myself. So, Casey, this has been awesome. Thank you, all of you who come and listen to us each week. We
Yes.
love having you be part of this journey with us. If you have specific guests that you want us to interview and add on, we actually have a great slate of people coming up for the second half of the year already that I'm looking forward to. But anybody else that you want to add in that you would think we should talk to, let us know. We want to continue to bring on thought leaders who can champion and guide and help us all get better at this craft. So thank you, everyone, for joining us on this journey, and look forward to the second half of this year.
Thanks, everyone.
SaaS Therapy is brought to you by Brainstorm, the SaaS platform for SaaS adoption. Learn more at brainstorminc.com.